The crystalline halls of Lumia Prime seemed alive as Daniel Stonnell walked their length, each translucent wall pulsing with faint light as if the palace itself were aware of his presence. The air carried a low hum, the sound of ancient crystal matrices resonating in harmony with unseen energies. To the seasoned soldier, who had spent much of his career in steel-plated ships and dusty war zones, the place felt otherworldly, an alien cathedral of glass, and light where every step echoed like a prayer. Daniel wore his earth-forged combat suit, polished to formality, its servos muted so his approach did not jar against the elegance of the palace. He moved with the confidence of one who had survived battlefields where hesitation was death. Yet he could not shake the sense that this assignment and audience with King Thalion was unlike any mission he had faced. The throne room doors parted without sound, two towering slabs of living crystal sliding open. Inside stretched a chamber vast enough to swallow a warship hangar, its ceilings spangled with facets that caught the glow of Lumia Prime's twin suns. At the far end, seated upon an ornate throne carved from a single flawless crystal, was King Thalion himself. The monarch's silvered skin shimmered faintly, his violet eyes sharp and penetrating, holding both wisdom and weight. Around him, courtiers stood in patient silence, their robes woven with threads that sparkled like starlight. But it was not the king who arrested Daniel's attention. Beside the throne, in a chair of luminous crystal, shaped with obvious care, sat Princess Ariana. Her long white hair spilled across her shoulders like strands of moonlight, her gown stitched with golden filigree that glimmered against pale skin. Her eyes, though clouded, were vast and unearthly violet, fixed ahead with a stillness that seemed to look through rather than at. The chair she sat in was more than a throne. It was a device of grace and necessity, moving subtly with her thoughts, compensating for a body paralyzed from the waist down. Daniel had read of her before coming here. The blind and disabled princess. The won suitors came to court for her title, only to leave disheartened or disappointed. To many across the stars, she was an object of pity, or worse, of calculation. Seeing her now, Daniel felt both judgments were wrong. There was nothing pitiable about the way she sat, back straight, chin high, the faint curve of her lips betraying not weakness, but composure earned through years of being underestimated. Daniel Stonnell of Earth, King Thalion declared, his voice carrying easily through the chamber, warm and resonant. You have served my kingdom well. Few have shown such discipline and honor in fulfilling their charge. Daniel bowed his head, his voice steady but respectful. Your Majesty, the honor was mine. The king's sharp gaze softened as he turned slightly toward his daughter. There is another honor to be found in this chamber. His hand gestured toward Ariana. My daughter? Daniel's eyes met hers, and though she could not see him, she tilted her head in his direction, as though she knew the exact space he occupied. For an instant, the air seemed to tighten between them, invisible threads drawn taut. Commander, Ariana said, her voice like silk woven with steel. I trust you find our palace suitably impressive. Daniel allowed a half smile, one corner of his mouth curving against the weight of formality. It's more beautiful than I expected. Though, truth be told, I've never been much dazzled by walls, no matter how they shine. A ripple of surprise moved through the courtiers. No one spoke so plainly to her. Ariana's lips curved into the faintest smile. And what dazzles you then, human soldier? People, Daniel said simply. The way they endure. The way they reveal who they are when everything else falls away. His gaze held hers firmly, not in pity, not in awe, but with honesty. For a heartbeat, silence ruled the crystalline chamber. Then Ariana laughed softly, a sound like chimes stirred by wind. It startled even the king, whose brows rose in quiet surprise. She tilted her head again, her smile sharper now, edged with mischief and interest. At last, she murmured. Someone who speaks without pretending. Daniel inclined his head, unflinching. I've never been good at pretending, Your Highness. And in that instant, she knew what no other suitor had ever shown her, that he saw not her blindness, nor her chair, nor her crown. He saw her. And Daniel felt, with sudden clarity, that this meeting would change both of their lives in ways neither could yet imagine. The shuttle descended through the lavender skies of Lumia Prime's southern provinces, its hull catching the sun's light like a blade of polished steel. Daniel Stonnell stood by the viewport, watching the alien landscape shift beneath them, spires of crystal, rising like frozen lightning bolts, fields of iridescent flora swaying in unison, as though some unseen rhythm guided their motion. It was beautiful, yes, but Daniel's soldier's mind did not relax. Too much perfection often masked danger. Beside him, Princess Ariana sat within her hover throne, her posture impeccable, her fingers dancing lightly across a crystalline interface that bent to her neural commands. Though blind, she manipulated the projections with ease, translucent glyphs and star charts swirling at her command. Daniel studied her out of the corner of his eye, struck again by the paradox of her fragility and her strength. She could not walk. She could not see. Yet in this place, where crystal tech responded to thought and will, she was as formidable as any general. The Drachnid delegation arrives tomorrow, Ariana said, her tone brisk, professional. Ambassador Krell himself, the seventh son of their emperor. He is ambitious, clever, and accustomed to winning what he wants. Daniel folded his arms across his chest. And what exactly does he want? Ariana turned her face toward him, and though her violet eyes could not focus, her smile told him she'd anticipated the question. Me, he frowned. You mean an alliance. I mean me, she corrected. In Drachnid culture, physical impairments are not seen as weaknesses. They value the mind above all else, and mine has been praised. She spoke without vanity, but with a certain resignation, as though this truth had been weaponized against her many times before. To Krell, my blindness and paralysis make me the ideal bride proof that intellect triumphs over the body. Daniel's jaw tightened. And what do you value, Your Highness? Her smile softened into something wry. When we are alone, call me Ariana. Titles are heavy things, and I carry enough burdens already. She leaned back in her throne, white hair catching the shuttle's interior light. What do I value? Authenticity, a quality most rare in the court. People wear masks here, layers upon layers of them. I can't see them, but I can feel the falseness in their words. It grates. Daniel studied her in silence for a long moment. Then, with deliberate frankness, he said, You're more dangerous than you let on. Ariana's laugh was soft but genuine. And you are more perceptive than most. Perhaps my father was right to pair us. The shuttle shuddered as it touched down on a landing pad of flawless crystal. Beyond the viewport, the provincial palace awaited, a smaller sibling of the capital's grand citadel, but still magnificent, its towers carved into spirals that caught the sun's rays. As Daniel and Ariana descended the ramp together, her throne moved with graceful precision, responding to her will with seamless loyalty. Impressive technology, Daniel remarked, unable to hide his appreciation. Lumen crystal tech, she explained. It responds not to command, but to harmony. I don't control it. I resonate with it. Watch. She gave the faintest twitch of her fingers, and the throne spun in a perfect arc, her gown flowing like liquid moonlight around her. Though I admit, it is far more enjoyable when I have an audience worth impressing. Daniel's pulse quickened at the playful edge in her voice. Are you flirting with me, Ariana? She tilted her head, lips curving. Would that be inappropriate? By human standards, he said, matching her tone. Yes. I find myself more interested in yours. Their exchange was interrupted by the arrival of Lord Veen. the province's chief administrator. His silver skin was darker than most Lumian nobles, his violet eyes narrowing as he bowed low before Ariana. "Your Highness, I see the rumors of your human companion are true. Daniel Stonnell is here as both my personal guard and diplomatic advisor," Ariana said firmly, her voice cutting through the unspoken disapproval like a blade. "I trust that won't be a problem, Lord Veen?" The noble forced a thin smile. "Of course not, Your Highness. Though some may question the wisdom of having a human present during negotiations with the Drachnids." Daniel met the man's gaze, his own expression steady, professional. "I assure you, my presence will only strengthen the proceedings." "Indeed," Ariana added, with a sharp edge that made her father's steel seem suddenly present in her voice. "Daniel has proven himself more than capable in both combat and diplomacy. Now, Lord Veen, perhaps you'd prefer to discuss tomorrow's arrangements rather than speculate on court gossip?" The noble's smile faltered, and he gestured stiffly toward the palace gates. "As you wish, Your Highness." As they moved through the crystalline corridors, Daniel noticed courtiers peering from behind jeweled fans and translucent partitions, their whispers carrying in the silence. Eyes followed Ariana's hover throne and the human soldier at her side. The weight of their judgment pressed heavy in the air, but Ariana bore it with perfect poise, her face serene, her posture proud. Later that evening, after hours of discussions with officials and preparations for the Drachnid arrival, Daniel escorted her to her chambers. She had been quiet, her earlier banter replaced by thoughtful silence. "Something's troubling you," he observed as they stopped before her. "You're perceptive," she admitted, lips curving faintly. "Unconcerned about tomorrow. The Drachnids, they do not accept rejection gracefully." Daniel leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Are you planning to reject Krell?" Her blind eyes turned toward him, sharp as a blade. "I plan to reject any proposal that treats me as a commodity." A pause, then softer. "My father gave me the freedom to choose my path. I intend to exercise it." Daniel felt the charge in the air, a silent current sparking between them. Her fragrance, delicate and crystalline, brushed against his senses. She reached out, her hand finding his chest with unerring accuracy, fingers resting lightly against the fabric of his formal attire. "And what path are you considering?" he asked, his voice low. "One that terrifies the court, intrigues my father, and makes my heart race whenever you're near," she whispered. Daniel's hand covered hers, steady and warm. "Then maybe it's worth the risk." Ariana's smile was small but radiant. "Perhaps it is." The crystalline arena blazed with twilight, its surfaces reflecting both the fading light of Lumia Prime's twin suns and the cold glow of embedded crystal matrices. Daniel Stonnell walked into the vast chamber, his armored boots striking the translucent floor with steady rhythm. Above him, galleries filled with courtiers glittered like a living constellation, their jeweled attire blending with the prismatic walls. To his right, high in the observation pod, Princess Ariana sat in her hover throne, her posture perfect, despite the tension that clung to her like a second skin. Lord Veen's voice rang out, amplified by the arena's resonant surfaces. "By ancient law, the right of suitor trial has been invoked. Ambassador Krell of the Drachnid Empire has challenged for the hand of Princess Ariana. Commander Daniel Stonnell of Earth has been named as rival suitor. Tonight begins the first trial combat." A murmur rippled through the assembled crowd. Daniel could feel the weight of their disbelief. A human standing where only Lumian nobles once dueled, bound by traditions older than Earth's earliest civilizations. His jaw tightened beneath the visor of his suit. He had faced worse odds. From the opposite side of the arena, Ambassador Krell entered. The Drachnid towered, his reptilian frame wrapped in scaled armor that shimmered with oily iridescence. Biomechanical implants pulsed faintly along his limbs, whispering promises of engineered strength. His lipless mouth curved into something that might have been a smile, but held no warmth. "Human," Krell said, his voice resonant, carrying too easily across the chamber. "You do not belong here. This is a test of our ways, not yours." Daniel's expression remained unreadable. "Your people wanted a contest. You've got one." Krell spread his clawed hands, gesturing to the crystalline floor. At his command, the arena shifted. Spires of living crystal erupted from the ground, jagged towers forming a labyrinth of deadly beauty. Platforms rose and fell with eerie precision, each one humming as it resonated with hidden energy. The air crackled as shards sharpened themselves into spears. Ariana leaned forward in her throne, her blind eyes unblinking. "Be careful," she whispered under her breath, though Daniel could not hear her from below. Still, she reached through the silence with her will, as though her energy could somehow steady him. Krell moved first, his massive frame surprisingly graceful, as he stepped across the crystalline platforms. With each motion, the crystals pulsed, responding to his command, forming jagged lances that hurled themselves toward Daniel. Daniel's sensors screamed warnings, and for a moment he felt the chaos of a battlefield, once more missiles, fire, death all around him. Instinct pushed him to fight back with brute force, but something in Ariana's earlier words cut through the noise. Crystal tech doesn't obey control. It answers harmony. Instead of resisting the resonance that rattled his armor, Daniel adjusted his systems, matching frequency to the pulses beneath his feet. The shift was subtle, almost imperceptible, but the crystals shuddered in acknowledgement. His next step landed not on shifting chaos, but on a solid platform that rose to meet him. As though welcoming his weight, the crowd gasped. No human had ever adapted so quickly. Krell snarled, summoning a storm of spears that rained from above. Daniel moved with sudden fluidity, platforms rising beneath him, crystal barriers shimmering into place to deflect the barrage. His movements looked less like a soldier fighting, and more like a dancer flowing through choreography, every step resonating with the arena itself. High above, Ariana's lips parted, her hand pressing to the armrest of her throne. For the first time, she sensed a human's energy weaving with the crystal matrix, something she had thought impossible. He wasn't just surviving. He was listening. Krell's frustration boiled over. "Tricks." He spat, launching a forbidden surge of energy into the matrix. The entire arena quaked, crystals vibrating dangerously, threatening collapse. Shards whirled into the air like razors. Daniel steadied his breath, closing his eyes for half a heartbeat. He thought of Ariana, of her voice, her laughter, the way she reached for him without sight, yet never missed. He reached deeper into the resonance, not forcing, not commanding, simply joining. The crystal's answered data formation rose beneath him, perfect in its symmetry, creating a mirrored cage that snapped shut around Krell with a resonant crack. The Drachnid roared, trapped by his own aggression, his implants sparking under the backlash. "Enough," Lord Veen's voice thundered, though it carried more shock than authority. "The combat trial is concluded. Daniel Stonnel of Earth has demonstrated mastery of crystal dancing. The Drachnid ambassador's sabotage is noted." The arena fell into stunned silence. Slowly, applause began among the younger nobles, spreading until the chamber vibrated with a chorus of crystalline chimes. Daniel stood tall amid the fading light, his armor scarred, but his stance unbroken. Above him, Ariana's smile bloomed like dawn. For the first time in her life, she felt the entire court's gaze shift, not toward her weakness, but toward the man who had seen her strength and made it his own. Their fates, she knew, had just become inseparable. The palace at dusk hummed with tension. Its crystalline corridors, usually alive with soft harmonics, seemed muted, as if the living architecture itself listened to the whispers curling through its halls. Courtiers lingered in shadowed alcoves, jeweled fans concealing mouths that moved with restless speculation. The suitor trials had not been staged for generations, and no one had expected the human to prevail. Yet Daniel Stono had walked from the crystal arena with his armor scorched, but his head high, and in that triumph the court had glimpsed something unsettling. Change. Princess Ariana glided through the corridors in her hover throne, Daniel at her side, his armored frame a stark, mortal contrast to her luminous grace. She wore serenity like a mask, lips curved faintly, posture unyielding, but Daniel could feel the current of irritation radiating from her like heat. He had fought enough battles to recognize the coiled patience of someone prepared to strike when the moment demanded. They entered the council chamber where nobles had already gathered, their silken robes spilling light in shifting patterns. At the far end, Lord Veen stood waiting, his darkened silver skin catching the glow in austere tones. His bow was deep, but his narrowed violet eyes betrayed no humility. "Your Highness," Veen began, his voice carefully measured, "today's display has unsettled many of your peers. The trials were never intended for outsiders. To permit a human, to permit Daniel," Ariana cut in sharply, her voice like crystal shattering. She turned her blind gaze directly toward him, and Daniel could feel the weight of her will, fierce and immovable. "He is not some nameless outsider, Lord Veen. He is my chosen advisor and protector. His presence here is by my command, and his victory today is proof that the old ways are not beyond new hands." The chamber rippled with unease. Some nobles bowed their heads, unwilling to meet her words. Others exchanged sly glances, fans trembling as whispers spread. Daniel stood silent, but his jaw tightened. He had felt their eyes all day, weighing him, dismissing him, plotting. Veen's smile was thin. "Of course, Your Highness. Yet perception matters. Already the Drachnid delegation voices concern at your attachment to this man, an attachment that may endanger delicate negotiations." Daniel almost spoke, but Ariana raised a hand, silencing him. Her fingers rested lightly on the throne's crystalline arm, and the chamber seemed to resonate in response, amplifying her voice. Ambassador Krell invoked the trials. He sought to prove his strength, and Daniel revealed not only his own, but Krell's treachery. If the Drachnids now cry foul, let them explain why their chosen suitor broke sacred law. She leaned forward, her blind eyes blazing, though they saw nothing. "As for attachment, yes, Lord Veen, I do not deny it. I trust Daniel because he has shown me something none of you ever have: honesty." The chamber froze. No one moved, no one breathed. To speak so openly, to admit personal trust, even affection, before the court was an act of rebellion as much as revelation. Daniel's chest tightened, heat stirring behind his ribs. For weeks he had kept himself the soldier professional, disciplined, watchful. But hearing her speak so boldly, so defiantly, sparked something deeper. She was not fragile, not to be pitied. She was fire, and she had just set the chamber ablaze. Veen recovered quickly, bowing his head again. "As you say, Your Highness, I merely caution prudence. The trials are not yet over." His tone dripped warning as he stepped back into the gathering shadows of his allies. The meeting dissolved soon after, nobles dispersing like a school of fish disturbed by a predator. Their whispers followed Ariana and Daniel down the corridors, threads of gossip weaving into NOOSES. Later, in the quiet of Ariana's private chambers, the mask of serenity slipped. She sat by the balcony, crystalline curtains drawn open to reveal a sky painted in lavender and gold. Daniel stood behind her, the hum of his armor a steady rhythm. "They think me reckless," she said softly, fingers tracing idle circles on the armrest of her throne. "They think my blindness clouds my judgment, that my body's weakness makes me desperate. Perhaps they even think I am cruel, to speak so openly of trust for one man. Daniel stepped closer, his voice low. What I heard tonight wasn't weakness. It was strength. You faced them all, unflinching, and you didn't let them twist what you feel into something to be hidden. That took more courage than anything I've seen on a battlefield. Her lips curved, small and tired. Courage, she echoed. Or defiance. He crouched beside her, his hand brushing hers where it rested on the throne's surface. Sometimes they're the same thing. She turned her face toward him, blind eyes searching, as though she could read truths in the air itself. Do you know what I fear, Daniel? Tell me that I will always be someone else's game piece. The Drachnids want me as a prize. The court sees me as a liability. Even my father, though he loves me, thinks of duty first. No one has ever let me simply choose. Daniel's fingers tightened around hers. You're choosing now. Ariana's smile returned, sharper this time. She leaned forward, close enough that her breath brushed against his cheek. Yes, she whispered. I am. And when she kissed him, it was not gentle, not hesitant, it was claiming. A declaration that for once, she was not the pawn, but the player. Unseen, beyond the balcony's crystalline screens, a shadow lingered. A young noble, face pale, slipped away into the night to whisper what he had seen. The court of whispers would soon have more fuel, and Ariana's choice, bold and defiant, would ripple outward into consequences neither she nor Daniel could yet imagine. The grand hall of wisdom shimmered like the inside of a living star. Columns of crystal rose into the vaulted heights, each one humming faintly with stored knowledge from millennia of Lumian history. At the center of the chamber stood the arena of matrices, a vast, circular platform etched with runes that glowed in shifting patterns. Above it hovered crystalline constructs, each one a fragment of probability, waiting to be shaped by thought. Daniel stood at the platform's edge, his armor retracted to ceremonial form. He felt naked without its protection. But Ariana had explained, the trial of wisdom is fought not with weapons, but with minds. Across from him, Ambassador Krell entered with predatory grace, his scaled armor gleaming with oily hues. The Drachnid's eyes glowed faintly, implants sparking at his temples, artificial enhancements designed to amplify intellect as easily as they had strength. From the dais, King Thalion's voice resonated. The trial of wisdom begins. Each suitor shall cast visions of the future into the crystal matrices, demonstrating foresight, judgment, and truth. The court will see not words, but worlds. A ripple of anticipation passed through the gathered nobles. Many leaned forward, their jeweled fans forgotten. The air carried a strange weight, as though the chamber itself yearned to witness what came next. Krell stepped forward first. His claws curled in ritual formation, and the matrices answered instantly, blooming into images that hung in the air like living tapestries. He projected futures where the Drachnid Empire stood unchallenged armies of scaled warriors marching across starfields, crystal spires bowing beneath their banners. He spoke with the confidence of a conqueror, his vision steeped in inevitability, strength through control, progress through domination. A universe bound by order, unshaken by weakness. Some nobles murmured approval, dazzled by the sheer scope of his visions. Daniel closed his eyes, Ariana's presence steady in his memory. Her words before the trial returned to him. Harmony, not control. Do not force the crystals, listen to them, and let them answer who you are. He stepped onto the platform. At first, nothing happened. The crystals pulsed uncertainly, their harmonics discordant. A low chuckle from Krell echoed through the whole dot. Then Daniel exhaled slowly, unclenching his hands. He thought not of empires, nor conquest, but of people, the soldiers he had led, the refugees he had carried out of fire, the laughter of Ariana as she dared him to see her as more than her chair, more than her blindness. He thought of choice and love and endurance. The crystals responded. Visions unfurled like petals. Futures of unity, where differences became strengths, where humans and Lumians and even Drachnants stood side by side, not as rivals, but as allies. Children of mixed bloodlines laughed beneath crystal towers. Entire fleets explored the galaxy together, not under banners of conquest, but of shared curiosity. The hall gasped. The visions shimmered with a rawness that Krell's calculated dominion lacked. They felt alive, unpredictable, full of risk and possibility, but also full of hope. This is weakness. Krell snarled, his own visions shifting violently into darker toned slavery, forced evolution, rows of bodies reshaped by machinery into perfect soldiers. Diversity breeds chaos. Harmony is an illusion. Only control ensures survival. Daniel's voice cut through the rising tension, steady and clear. Control is fear, dressed as strength. True survival comes when we choose to stand together, not when we are forced. As he spoke, the matrices pulsed brighter. Ariana's hover throne, stationed beside her father, thrummed in resonance. The patterns within her neural interface shifted, glowing in harmony with Daniel's visions. She gasped softly, her hands gripping the arms of her throne as energy coursed through her body. The bond between them surged, echoing through the chamber. King Thalion's eyes narrowed, but not in anger and revelation. Her patterns, he murmured. They're changing. The hall erupted with whispers. Some nobles leaned away in awe, others in fear. Krell's face twisted with rage as he realized the truth, that Daniel's bond with Ariana was rewriting more than probability. It was rewriting possibility itself. You corrupt her. Krell roared. A human dares to taint the bloodline of Lumia? He hurled his final vision into the matrices, a storm of jagged images meant to overwhelm cities burning, crystals shattered, humanity consumed by its own weakness. But Daniel did not counter with force. He simply extended his hand, and Ariana, her blind eyes luminous now with inner light, reached out to him across the distance. Their fingers did not touch, but the resonance between them bridged the gap. Together, they cast a single vision, a future where Ariana stood walking radiant, unbound by her throne, her hand clasped with Daniel's. At their side, a child with violet eyes and human determination laughed, crystals blooming wherever he stepped. The image pulsed so strongly, the entire hall felt its warmth, as if the future itself had brushed against their skin. Krell staggered, his implants sparking violently under the backlash. He fell to one knee, his visions collapsing into nothing. The chamber fell silent. Then King Thalion rose from his throne. His voice carried the weight of law, yet also wonder. The trial of wisdom is decided. The Drachnid offers only domination. The human offers possibility. Ariana's resonance confirms what I now accept. This union is not folly. It is evolution. Daniel turned his gaze upward, finding Ariana in the crowd. Her smile was radiant, her lips trembling as though holding back tears. He had not just passed the trial, he had changed the game. But in the shadows at the edge of the hall, Lord Veen's eyes burned with calculation. And the whispers began again, darker this time, already weaving new plots for the final trial to come. The night before the final, trial fell heavy over the provincial palace, the crystalline towers reflecting only faint starlight, as though the world itself held its breath. Inside the great hall, courtiers gathered in uneasy silence, their whispers quivering with rumors of what was to come. The trial of devotion had been invoked, an ancient ordeal so rarely demanded that most had only heard of it in songs and half-forgotten records. For a human to attempt, it was unthinkable. For Ariana to permit, it was scandal itself. Daniel stood at the center of the chamber, his armor retracted to its base layer, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon him. His heart was steady, but his thoughts were restless. This wasn't a contest of strength or vision. This was something rawer, older. The Drachnid ambassador Krell loomed across the arena, his body gleaming with biomechanical augmentations that pulsed with venomous light. His lipless grin stretched wide, cruel satisfaction glittering in his reptilian eyes. "By ancient law," Lord Veen intoned, voice echoing through the crystal vaults, "the trial of devotion tests not combat nor intellect, but truth of heart. Both suitors will expose themselves to the raw essence of Lumia's crystal resonance. It will reveal weakness, falsehood, and fear. Only one will endure." Gasps rippled through the court. Even among Lumians, the ritual was perilous. Unshielded crystal energy burned through neural pathways, stripping pretense until nothing remained but the soul itself. For a human, it could be death. From her seat above, Ariana's hover throne hummed violently, its crystalline facets glowing brighter than ever. She leaned forward, her blind eyes luminous, voice carrying despite its softness. "Daniel, you don't have to do this." He lifted his gaze, meeting her unseeing eyes. "I know, but I want to." The matrices flared, crystalline pillars rising around him, their hum building into a thunderous resonance. A sphere of light descended, encasing both Daniel and Krell within its trembling glow. The energy struck immediately, searing through Daniel's body, bypassing armor and flesh, latching onto thought, memory, and truth. He staggered, teeth clenched, but forced himself to stand tall. Visions surged against his mind, the screams of soldiers he could not save, the cold silence of battlefield nights, the shadow of failure that had followed him through every mission. The resonance was merciless, dragging his deepest fears into the open. What if you are not enough? What if you fail her too? Across from him, Krell roared triumphantly. His augmentations flared, channeling the crystal energy like a siphon. His visions manifested as dominance worlds enslaved, thrones shattered, Ariana at his side, not as partner, but as possession. His cruelty was bared for all to see, and yet he relished it. Daniel dropped to one knee, his breath ragged. The resonance pressed harder, demanding truth, demanding devotion. His failures screamed at him, the weight of every life lost gnawing at his chest. Then, like a clear note cutting through static, came Ariana's voice. Harmony, not control. He raised his head. She was there, beyond the barrier, reaching with her presence as she always had, blind eyes seeing him more clearly than anyone else. Daniel let the energy in, not fighting, not resisting. He gave it his truth, his love for her. His devotion was not in conquest or pride, but in the simple, unshakable choice to stand at her side, to fight for her, to be hers. The resonance shifted. The crystals pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, their violent hum softening into harmony. Ariana gasped, her hand flying to her abdomen as new energy coursed through her body. The truth blazed across the hall for all to see. She was carrying his child. The unborn life flared in the matrices, a beacon of possibility. No. Krell bellowed, thrashing against the light. His implants sparked violently as he tried to force domination on the crystals. But the resonance rejected him, amplifying his corruption. His visions warped, collapsing into shadows that turned inward. The more he forced, the more the crystals consumed him, until his roar broke into a shriek of pain. Daniel stood, light coursing through him now, his body singing in harmony with Ariana's. He extended his hand, not to strike, but to reach toward her. Ariana reached back, and though they did not touch, the resonance bridged them, flooding the chamber with radiant brilliance. The barrier collapsed in a burst of energy, leaving Krell broken on the floor, his implants shattered, and his arrogance stripped bare. Silence hung, heavy and absolute. Then King Thalion rose, his violet eyes burning with awe. The trial is complete. Daniel Stonnell has proven devotion beyond all measure. And in doing so, he has revealed more than his own truth. He has revealed the dawn of a new age. Ariana's hover throne pulsed with blinding light, reshaping itself around her as though alive. She gasped, clutching Daniel's hand as sensation rushed through her legs. Tears spilled down her face. "Daniel, I can feel them." "I can feel everything." The court erupted in cries of shock and wonder. Ariana, the blind and paralyzed princess, stood. Daniel caught her as her legs trembled, holding her steady. Together, they faced the stunned court. Ariana's voice rang clear, proud, unyielding. "This is devotion, not to power, not to control, but to love. Let any who doubt look upon us and know the truth." And the palace itself answered, its crystals singing in resonance, carrying her words into legend. The crystalline spires of Lumia Prime blazed like suns the day of the child's birth. Bells woven from living crystal rang across the provinces, their tones harmonizing in perfect resonance, as though the entire world celebrated. Nobles and courtiers filled the palace, drawn less by protocol and more by awe. Few could deny that something larger than tradition had taken root. Daniel Stannel stood outside Ariana's chamber, his heart hammering in a way no battlefield had ever managed. He had faced Drachnid assassins, collapsing starships, even the merciless energy of Lumia's trials. Yet nothing had ever made him feel so vulnerable as waiting for the child they had fought for. The crystal walls pulsed faintly with golden light, reacting to the resonance inside. It felt as though the palace itself was alive with anticipation. When the door slid open, Daniel stepped forward. Ariana sat upon a crystalline couch, her white hair unbound and luminous, her silver skin glowing with an inner warmth he had never seen before. And in her arms lay their son. The child's skin shimmered with pale silver, laced with a human undertone of warmth. His eyes, already open, gleamed violet and curious, wide with the same defiance Daniel had seen in Ariana the first time she dared laugh in court. Wisps of platinum hair crowned his head, and wherever his gaze landed, the crystal matrices thrummed in gentle response. Ariana lifted her face, tears sparkling like gems upon her cheeks. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice unsteady with joy. "He's perfect." Daniel moved closer, his hands trembling as Ariana placed the infant in his arms. The child was small, impossibly fragile, yet the resonance in Daniel's chest told him he held something boundless. The baby cooed, and golden light spilled from the chamber's walls, cascading into harmonic patterns. King Thalion entered quietly, his usual regal composure softened into something deeply human. He approached and touched the child's tiny hand with reverence. "The council has agreed," he said, his voice hushed as though speaking too loudly might break the moment. The ancient record spoke of this. A starborn child born of two worlds, bridging what was once divided. His birth heralds the convergence. Ariana smiled, rocking gently against Daniel's side, her blind eyes glowing with inner fire, though they no longer appeared clouded. "Leon," she murmured. "That is his name." Star-touched, as if in answer, the child giggled, and the crystals above them erupted into a cascade of light. Patterns wove themselves across the ceiling, vast constellations forming and reforming as though the cosmos bent to the boy's will. Outside, the spires chimed, and across Lumia, crystal tech responded lamps flickered alive, fields shimmered, and the planet itself seemed to exhale. The courtiers who had once whispered pity now bowed their heads, overcome by awe. Even the most hardened nobles saw not weakness in Ariana, but destiny. Daniel held his son against his chest, his throat tight. He looked at Ariana, who leaned into him, standing with strength in her legs that only weeks before had been lifeless. "When I first met you," he said quietly, "they called you blind, broken, unsuitable. But I never saw that. I saw you, and now the whole galaxy will see you too." Ariana lifted her face, her smile radiant. "No, Daniel. Now they will see us. You, me, and our son. Proof that love can do what power never could, change the course of worlds." Lips met in a kiss that carried not secrecy, but declaration. Around them, the crystals sang, carrying their bond across the palace and out into the stars not far away in the Drachnid homeworld. Ambassador Krell nursed his broken pride, his implants forever scarred. Word of the starborn child spread faster than any fleet, reaching even the most distant outposts. Where once the Drachnids sought to force evolution, now they saw it achieved through love. Other species listened to races who had watched from the shadows, uncertain if humanity and Lumia could truly become one dot in the days that followed. Delegations came not with demands, but with questions. They wanted to understand how a human soldier and a blind princess, dismissed by their own courts, had created the future every empire claimed to seek. And in the crystalline gardens where Daniel had once stood guard, he now walked hand in hand with Ariana, their son nestled between them. Laughter echoing off the crystal blossoms. Legends spread quickly, as they always did. They spoke of the human who refused to see weakness where others saw only disability, and of the princess who dared to choose love over duty. They spoke of a child who, before his first words, made the crystals sing. But for Daniel and Ariana, none of that mattered in the quiet hours. In those moments, as they held their son and felt the resonance of his joy ripple through the palace, they knew the truth. The greatest power in the universe was not technology, not prophecy, not empire. It was love unbounded, unashamed, and unstoppable.